Wouldn't it be nice to wake up one day not having to worry about running late to your 9 to 5, putting up with people who sucks the joy out of you, impressing your boss by turning up to work even though you don't feel very well, feeling guilty to take holidays even though they are yours to take, being afraid to take risks on things that really matter to you? Well, we all do these things because we worry. Worry about not being able to pay the bills or keep up with the mortgage payment. And yes, it would be nice if we didn't have to feel this way, which is why planning for financial independence is just so exciting. It can truly give you hope. For me, financial independence is not about not working and just lazing around all day, because knowing me, I'd be so bored. It's about working on the things that I really enjoy doing and working because I want to do it, because I want to work, not because I have to. So I don't have to slave away in a 9 to 5 until I'm 65. This is exactly why it is just so important to start planning for it as soon as you can. Even if you dedicate a little amount of time now, it's really going to pay off in the future. So when it comes to this sort of planning and thinking of the future, there are some obvious questions that comes to mind. Questions around how much do I need to invest so that I can retire at a certain age? Or, if I invest this amount every month, and by the time I retire, the amount of money I will have in my pension pot, will that really be enough for me to sustain my current level of lifestyle until I die, basically? So these are some very valid questions, and a lot of people uses the 4% rule to kind of calculate how much money you need to have invested until so that you can basically retire in a few years time, or whatever age you're thinking to retire. Although the 4% rule is very nice and simple way of figuring out how much you need to have in retirement, however, with me, I'm a little bit hesitant just to use that rule and make my financial plan just based on it, which is why I went ahead and did my own little Excel modeling. And in this video, I'm basically going to talk you through my Excel file and how I am planning for my own financial independence or retirement. By the way, I can happily send you that Excel file if you find it useful and if you want to use it for your own retirement planning. So just keep watching and let me know if you would like to have it. So right before we head into the Excel file, let me just talk very briefly about the 4% rule, which I have just mentioned. So the 4% rule basically tells us what percentage of our pension pot we can safely take out every single year from retirement without having to worry about running out of money before we die. And that percentage, as you may have guessed, is 4%. You can also use this 4% rule to back out how much money you should ideally have in your investment portfolio by the time you retire. And you can get this number by dividing your annual expenditure, so how much money you typically spend every year, by 4%. So if your annual expenses is say £25,000 per year, all you need to do is divide £25,000 by 4% and get £625,000. So that is the amount of money you should ideally have in your investment pot or your retirement pot before you can retire. And once you have that money at your retirement, you can safely take out 4% of that value on your first year of retirement. So what happens is that on the second year of your retirement, you would take out 4% plus the inflation, because remember, inflation is something that's continuous. So every year, the amount of expense that you have will, increase with inflation. And if you kind of maintain that amount of drawdown, so every year it keeps increasing with inflation, you should be fine and your money will not run out before you die. So this is a great little rule. It's very simple, and though it may not be perfect, but it kind of gives you a good idea behind how much money you should really be targeting to have. But here is why I would give a very big caveat for people who is looking to retire soon, strictly based on this 4% rule. And it is everything to do with the assumptions that was made behind this rule and the divergence that we have between theory and our current times. Firstly, the rule was formed in the year 1994 by a financial planner. He carried out many different types of modules of retirement portfolio, beginning in 51 different years from 1926 to 1976, which included 3 major financial events of that time. And so in that case, the theory was tested under stressed conditions. The theory is based on some major assumptions. One of the biggest one is the fact your retirement income or that portfolio should last you for 30 years. So by that measure, assuming our current average life expectancy of 82 years, the earliest age when you can retire is 52. Next, the author assumes that we hold our money 50-50 in stocks and bonds, such as US Treasury. Although he uses 50-50 allocation, he does advocate to have higher allocation to equities or stocks up to 75%. I have two major problems with these assumptions. Firstly, having 50-50 holding in equities, especially when you have retired, is extremely risky because equities, as we know, is very volatile. So when you are in retirement, you don't want your income to be volatile, right? You want to have a stable level of income. So that 50% allocation or even 75%, the one that he advocates, it just seems very risky to me at the moment. And the second problem is just around the rate scenario. The bond market have changed so much since the time this theory was done. Right now, our interest rates are at all-time low. So expecting to get some high level of income through government bonds, it just seems very unlikely to me. So his work would have given a better expected return based on how bonds were performing, 40 years ago from now. This brings me to his expected asset class return that he used. His work assumes a 10.3% stock market return and a 5.2% bond market return. 5.2% for bonds could be a little high because we have interest rate at all-time low. So in my personal opinion, if you want to have a proper or more realistic plan for retirement, it is best to use forward-looking expected asset class return compared to historical. You can actually get some forecast of asset class return over, say, next 20 years from some of the really large financial institutions out there, such as BlackRock. All you have to do is just Google asset class return forecast, and you can get some sort of realistic idea as to what is a typical level of return you can expect from the stock market or the bond market. So as you can imagine, the more I was studying this theory or the formula, the more of the flaws that I was picking up, which is why I really wanted to design an Excel or do my own spreadsheet, which is fully flexible, so I can have my own assumptions in it. I can change the way I see allocation to bonds and equities and so forth. And that flexibility is really important to have a more realistic expectation of your future pension funds performance. Okay, let's get right to Excel right now and let me talk you through what I've done. This is the main page. So we have all the inputs here. I'm able to change my assumptions as I see fit on expected level of equity market return, inflation, on bond return, and things like that. Within the inputs, I'm also assuming that I'll be living until the age of 80, and every year I will have a wage increase of about 3%. It is important to note that because when the 4% rule was done, average life expectancy was around 70 years, and now we all live longer, and that number is above 80 years. So while the 4% rule assumes a 30-year retirement time, it no longer holds. 10 years is a very long time for a pot of money to not run out. Poof. And another key difference between the 4% rule and my input or allocation is the way I have split the allocation between stocks and bonds. I've done a more of a dynamic allocation into 3 separate life stages. So the first half of my investment horizon, i.e. while I'm still working and able to make money and invest those money, half of this time I will put all my investment into equity. So 100% will go into the stock market. For example, if I'm working for next 20 years, then for the first 10 years, it will all go into stocks. And then for the next 10 years, I will move into a 50-50 allocation like they have in the 4% rule. So 50% of my money will go into the equity market or the stock market, and the 50% will go into the bond market. And finally, when we actually retire, so when I stop working, this is what I'm assuming, and I have no income, I will then shift my allocation probably mostly in bonds, say about 80%. I mean, that figure is still very high for bond, but I'm just assuming that I want a very stable level of income, right? You can obviously change that allocation as you see fit. Remember, with bonds, you know upfront how much money you'll be getting fixed every month, so it makes your income very stable. Okay, let's do an example of an average person. Let's say that the current age of this average person is 30, and this average person makes about £35,000 per year. And I got this number from the ONS website. This is basically the average salary in the UK for someone aged 30. And then we're going to assume that this person already saved up about £10,000 for their retirement. Just to give a pot of money for them to start with. And then they want to retire at the age of 50, let's say. So this basically gives them a 20-year investment horizon. And during this time, their wage will increase by 3%, just as I have assumed. I'm also assuming that this person is saving and investing 30% of their income for retirement. So this number here, again, this is an input that we can always change. Now, the next biggest assumption to make is how much money do you need at the time of retirement to maintain your current level of lifestyle? You don't need to project that number into the future. All you need to think about is how much money you are spending per year right now. So for this example, let's say that to maintain their current level of lifestyle at retirement, this person wants to spend £18,000 per year. This number, remember, will be adjusted for inflation. So you don't have to worry about it right now. This will increase 2% per year through inflation. So in this example, the main economic assumptions I've made is a 2% inflation, 9% stock market return, and 3% bond market return. And again, we're assuming that this person will live until the age of 80. So this means they have a retirement horizon of 30. So the money that they're able to invest right now, it should sustain them for at least 30 years, because that's when they're not going to be making any more income. So here is the output. Our calculation shows that the money this person will have by the time they are 50 will be 653,000. We can also see that this pot of money will run out when the person is about 84 years old. So a very tight assumption here, right? Because if they are living above the age of 84, then we have a big problem. So that's what it is at the moment, and you can obviously see the chart. So the green line here is the value of the retirement pot if the person did not take any money out. So in our example, we said we are gonna retire at 50, so that this is why you see a big kink here. So this orange line kind of shows you when you start to take your money out from the age of 50. And so from then on, if you were to keep taking your money out, as we said we would, and increase that with inflation, it's gonna start to deteriorate, right? So the value of your investment pot will start to go down. And we saw that we're gonna run out of our money at the age of 84. This is when the orange line gets to zero. So we are using up all the money that we have invested for about 20 years. But if you did not do that, if you just let it grow, if you did not need that money, then it can really grow thanks to the power of compounding. So two important caveats here that I have assumed in my calculation is the returns, right? So this equity market return and bond market return, they are assumed to be after fees. So don't forget fees, because fees do take it away from your performance. And the second assumption that I've made is that your annual expected expenditure, so the money that you're taking out from your investment account when you start to retire, won't have any income tax. As I've assumed that we are saving, say, 30% of our income and investing it for the future, and that 30% in practical terms won't necessarily go all into your pension account, right? Some of it will go into your ISA account. And the way you get your money back and the amount of tax you pay on it is very different. As you may know, when you start to take your money out from your pension account, you obviously don't pay any taxes like capital gains tax or income tax on the dividends. However, the money that you take out from that pension account every year is going to be taxed based on your personal tax bracket. So if you take out above 12,500, which is the current tax-free rate, then you will have to pay the income tax on amount above that. But if you take your money out from your ISA account, then again, it is completely tax-free and you don't have to pay any extra tax, because the money you're investing in ISA, it has already been taxed by your employer, because those are, after income tax. But most of the times when we are investing in a pension, especially through, say, employer pension, they are deducted before our tax level is applied to our salary. So all we're doing when we're putting money into a pension account is that we're deferring that tax amount into the future. So I hope that this really highlights the importance of having an ISA account or a separate investment account on top of your pension account, because with pensions there are lots of caveats, there's lots of rules as to when you can actually start to get your money out and the taxes that you have to pay on it. That's all from me today, guys. I would love to know how you're planning for your own financial independence or retirement. Do let me know in the comment section below. And until next time, look after yourself and your money.